Good morning, viewers. Welcome to the International Society for Performance Improvement Master Series, as well as Keynote Speaker Series. My name is Valerie Bernard, and I'm coming to you from Dallas, Texas today, and I am a volunteer member of the International Society for Performance Improvement. And joining me today is Dr. Mark Salisbury, and he's coming to us from Minneapolis, Minnesota today. So you've got Texas in the house, and you've got Minnesota in the house, and we know that we have viewers all around the world participating in this series we're doing, and we're glad that you're here to join us today as well. I know you're in for a real treat from this fine gentleman. So please allow me a minute here to give you a brief introduction of Dr. Mark Salisbury. Dr. Salisbury did his Ph.D. in Curriculum and Instruction at the University of Oregon. In addition, he's a double master's degree with Computer and Information Science at the University of Oregon, as well as a Master's of Art in Teaching Economics at Western Oregon University. After completing his graduate study, he worked for 11 years at the Boeing Company on designing software to improve human performance. In addition, when Dr. Salisbury left Boeing, he founded Vitel Incorporated, a knowledge management solution provider that developed knowledge management systems for the Department of Defense and the U.S. Department of Energy, as well as the national laboratories. Mark was a professor for 17 years and the director for 10 years in the Organizational Learning and Instructional Technology program at the University of New Mexico, where he taught graduate courses and conducted research in the area of knowledge management. Currently, Dr. Salisbury is a professor in Organizational Development and Change at the University of St. Thomas. Please join me in welcoming professor, speaker, author, consultant, and expert on the new learning economy, Dr. Mark Salisbury. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Valerie. It's great to be with you today.
Oh, thank you so much. We had a chance to talk a couple weeks ago, and it was just such an enlightening conversation, learning more about you and learning more about your work. And I instantly connected with you because I learned straight away that your grandpa and your dad were actually from West Virginia, which is my home state. And so that was a great thing for me to learn. And one of the things you said was that what you loved about West Virginia, and West Virginians especially, was that they were big-hearted, generous, and real. And so I think that those three adjectives, in addition to describing West Virginians and what you can expect in working with West Virginians and knowing West Virginians, is that those three adjectives describe you as well. So on behalf of ISPI, we thank you for the gift of your time today.
Oh, you're welcome. Looking forward to it.
Well, tell us a little bit about that. I think that our board president, Klaus Wittkuhn, sent me a YouTube video a while back that you had done a TED Talk, and he wanted me to look at that, and he indicated that you were going to be one of our keynote speakers at our upcoming conference. And so I'd like you to share with our viewers, if you don't mind, kind of go back to those roots and kind of bring us up to speed to what you'd like us to know, and include in that a little bit about your TED Talk and what that was about.
Well, you know, my TED Talk was about how this line between people and our inventions, this time our computers, how that line is changing over time. And one of the things I talked about that is when my grandfather was working in West Virginia, they brought in a machine called the joy loader. And the joy loader was a machine that actually, you know, shoveled and pulled coal out of the mine. So that was a change for people who were in the coal mining business. And so that line, though, ever since my grandfather was working in the coal mines, has been changing. And so now we've got machines that will actually do some of the cognitive processes that we just have been used to doing in our economy for quite some time. And I think it's really changing. We're right on the cusp of a very big change in the way we do our work. And I think one of the things that I like to tell people is that this can be a good change. I think there's a lot of anxiety and concern among people around what are we all going to do for a living if machines take our jobs. And so one of the things that I like to assure people is there's plenty of work to do. There's plenty of interesting work to do. And that's kind of part of my talk I'll be giving at ISPI. And it's the basis of a new book I'm working on. And it's called Rise of the Homo Sapiens. And the idea is that the new workers who are coming into the new, what I call learning economy, are actually going to work different than their predecessors.
It's such interesting work that you're doing. And you mentioned something earlier about a story about the three accountants. Is that something you'd like to share today?
Yeah, I always tell people, I say, when I start and use this story, I'll say, well, these three accountants walk into a bar. And people kind of groan. And then I go, so have you ever heard a funny story about three accountants going into a bar? And they all shake their heads. And I say, well, this story isn't funny either. And so what you have are three guys that went to school in accounting 10 years before. They now live in different parts of the country. They work for very large accounting firms, or I should say they work in the accounting department of very large companies. And so they're at this conference. And so at the end of one of the conference days, they go and they go get a drink. So they walk into a bar. And so they're there to learn about these new IRS changes that's going to affect their organizations. And it's a big deal for them because these organizations might have hundreds of places that they have to make these changes across their organization. Some of them have a lot of field offices, and so they need to change the way they do their accounting procedures. And so they got to get it right, and they got to make sure that they have it, that they make these changes within the IRS's time window. So, but these guys still are trying to top each other. They're a little competitive, right? So the first guy goes, takes a sip of his beer, and he says, you know, my department's growing again. I'm going to hire a new college graduate that's going to help me with these new IRS changes. And then he kind of takes a sip of his beer, and the other guys kind of shake their head. And then he said, you know, I'm expecting with this new guy that we should be able to get all of this work done within the 18-month window the IRS is giving us. So I think that's going to look good on me and my department. And then the second guy goes, you know, he wants to top the first guy because they've been doing this since they were kids. He goes, well, you know, I did that 3 years ago. I hired a guy. But now that guy I hired is at a conference in Washington, D.C., and he's learning what those IRS changes are. When he comes back, we're going to hit the road running, him and I. We're going to show people how we do work in our division, and it's going to shine really well on me because we're going to get all this done in 9 months. So they're kind of talking. So the two of them look at the third guy, who's drinking scotch, by the way, and not beer. And he says, well, I took a different tack. He said, my accountant, I worked with her, and she spent about a month finding out all the details about the new IRS changes. And she took that month, and then she also took some of that time to create a new intelligent program. And this intelligent program will now work, it's an app actually, will work with our field offices and walk them through all the changes they need to make to be compliant with these IRS changes. And that system, that app, she fielded about 3 weeks ago. We're almost half done, and we expect to be completely done with our company, which I remind you guys is bigger than your two companies. We're going to be done by the end of this month. And he takes a sip of his scotch. And their jaws just drop because what? How did this happen? Right? And so when we stand back, we look at these three scenarios, and the first one is one that never really worked, is we get people out of school and we expect them to be ready for professional work, and they're not. The people I used to work with at San Diego National Labs continually reminded me that engineers that our colleges would graduate weren't ready for engineering when they got to San Diego. So the same is true with accounting and other professions. So that never worked, still doesn't work, never will work. And the second one is that this is what we think the economy is right now, is that people learn just in time and then they do the work, right? And this is our best thinking, and we think this is where we're shooting for. We talk about lifelong learning, and in reality that is past. We're now in what I call the learning economy, and what that means is, in the third scenario, is that a person learns the solution to an answer or a solution to a problem, and then uses technology to disseminate that solution to a lot of other people, or share it if you think of it as a knowledge management situation. Mm-hmm. And so the third person is actually created new knowledge about how to make these changes and use technology in order to disseminate them. That's happening. That's the new learning economy. And you go, well, you know, that sounds like a great little story, and we're right on the cusp. That's going to happen soon. But I got to tell you, Valerie, the tools are here. I've been playing around with some of Microsoft's new tools. They got a thing called Power Apps, which will allow regular people like you and me create an app that people can use without programming. So I have a programming background, as you know, and it's astonishing. And then the second thing is there's another technology they have called Flow, which will help you model a process. And in this case, with our accountants, you can model in a process that steps her people in the field offices through the steps they need to take to change their accounting processes so they're compliant. And then the third one, and this is a whopper, Microsoft has done what IBM did. IBM took Watson, their intelligent program, they put it in the cloud, they let people make calls to it and use it in other applications. Microsoft has their own cognitive services, and one of them is LUIS, language understanding, and intelligent, system. And I probably got that wrong, but what I have right is I played around with it, and it'll answer those kinds of questions. So having an intelligent application that can answer questions like a professional one is here. And so now when we look at an accounting department or any other kind of professional group of people that do work, we have to ask the question, why aren't they spending some of their time capturing new knowledge and then disseminating that with these new intelligent applications? So what that means is the new learning economy we're just now breaking into. It means that people learn, that's their work, and machines act on that learning. And so that's their work. So now our job, people learn, machines do the work.
Yes, it's such an interesting conversation. I think some of us think it's in the future, but like you just alluded to, we're here and it's now. And tell us, I'd like to hear some more about your book that you have that you're working on and that's coming out soon, and your inspiration behind that, and some of the content that readers could expect if they were to look into that book in the future.
Yeah, that's a great question, because one of the things, and I've been working with Microsoft on this, on how you use the tools, and people see this and then they go, that's really great, because right now I don't think we quite understand what to do with these tools. You know, I think people have been working away, and I have to say I think some of the people that have developed these new intelligent tools don't quite know how they're going to play out. And I think the big picture, and this is what my book is about, is having the tools around is great, but how do we leverage them to make our individuals more productive? How do we make our teams more innovative? And how do we transfer that into larger productive gains in our organizations? Mm-hmm. And so that's what my book is about. And what I think is really fascinating is, yeah, we're using tools, and that makes us more productive. But guess what? Those old-fashioned ideas about having personal integrity and having your work speak for itself, all of those things are actually more important now than they've ever been. And so that's what the book is about. How do you create an organization that can utilize these tools? How can you make teams more productive? And then the big part of the book is, how do you learn, or I should say, how do you lead these new learning workers in this kind of economy? And so I think that's really interesting, that I think the future, as it should be, is a mixture of the old and the new.
Wow, it sounds so exciting, and I know I became a fan because I also see that the LinkedIn, the ISPI LinkedIn Global Group has about 6,200 followers and members now, and if you're seeing this series, then we invite you to that as well. But you're a frequent author and post frequently, I think on a weekly basis even, am I correct, on the LinkedIn ISPI Global Group?
Oh, you are right. And one of the things I've been doing is sharing chapters of my new book. And so it's been getting a lot of interest in that. And I think one of the things that I think people will find very interesting is I put together a demo, a demonstration of how these new tools would actually work in a real setting. And I think that's when people see it and they go, oh, now I get it. Now I understand why we need to rethink how we engage people in our organizations, and especially how are we going to lead them so that they can be part of this new learning economy.
Now, is that in the LinkedIn group, or is that somewhere else on YouTube, or where can we find that?
Well, what I do is I post it on my own site, so I have a few followers of my own, and I put the link on our ISPI LinkedIn site, so you can follow it right back to my site.
Okay, and your site is, what site should we reference?
Okay, my LinkedIn site.
It's on your LinkedIn site. Okay, so we can find you on LinkedIn, and people can inbox you and connect with you to get more information on LinkedIn. Then that's the best place.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Well, if you're listening to this and you want more information then regarding this conversation, then definitely you can look up Dr. Mark Salisbury on LinkedIn, on linkedin.com, and search for his name, and he'll be expecting a message from you in his inbox. And once again, you can also join the ISPI LinkedIn Global Group as well. So with all of the things that you have on your plate, are there any other things that you're working on right now that you'd like to share with our viewers?
Well, you know, I am. I've been fascinated by this, and I know that we're right on the cusp of having really a radical transformation in how we do work. This whole idea now is, if you think about it, when you go in for a performance kind of appraisal with your boss, and your boss does with his boss, it's around this whole thing of, what did you do last year? Right? And so we are paid for what we do. And we're now starting to realize that machines actually do most of the things better than we do. And so now the question is going to be, what did you learn? And how did you share that with other people? And so one of the things, being a professor and working for a large company like Boeing and having my own company, I realized that change is not easy, and so one of the things I've been doing is working with organizations on how they can be ready for this change, and think about how their employees or members of their organization can spend some of their time starting to use some of these new tools so that they can actually be able to manage some of their processes in ways that they haven't been able to do before, and be able to use this intelligence, if you will, to extend their productive capabilities of their people. So I've been doing that, and one of the things I've started to realize is once people see it, there's a lot of demand for it. And so now I'm working on the idea of being able to partner with other people through groups like ISPI, the people that go to ISPI, and they're already working with their own clients, and they're seeing this, and they're wondering, how can I help my clients be able to be successful in this new learning economy? Then I'm trying to look at ways to partner with them so that they have some of the same training materials that I've created and some of the things that I'm using with my clients that now they can use with theirs.
Yes, and I'm sure this is going to be just a perfect fit. You know, some of our advocate partners, this is kind of a little commercial for them. You know, we have Kellogg's and Boeing and United States Coast Guard, AMEA, Sheets, UPS, and the list goes on. And we know all this change is taking place, and what a better person to partner with than you, Mark, for the experience that you bring to the table and decades of watching these types of change. Not only you being a practitioner out there actually doing it, but also to be able to put the research that you've done behind this, to me, just makes this a perfect fit. So we really appreciate that you've shared your knowledge with us, and I am so excited for Montreal. It's actually my first time in Montreal, and I've already blocked off Tuesday morning for the opening keynote session, so I know you're going to have a huge group of fans there, and a lot of people that are wanting to learn about this very topic. Who do you think might be the best, as far as the best fit for your presentation? Is it, you know, instructional designers, consultants, performance improvement professionals? What would be the target audience in your opinion?
Well, I think people who are in performance improvement would find it interesting. The ones I really target are those people, and they might not be managers now, but they're looking around and thinking, you know, how can I be able to unleash, you know, the creativity, innovation in my people? How can I be successful in this new learning economy as an unrolled? So the people I think would get the most out of it, and I've targeted, and that's what my book is about, is how do you lead these new workers? Because they're very different on a number of levels, and it goes way beyond the description we use for some of our youngest workers as millennials. There's something fundamentally and profoundly different about these new learning workers.
That sounds really great, and I know we are going to have several hundred leaders already that have registered and attending the conference, and so I'm guessing your session is going to be a packed house. And once again, you can hear more about Dr. Salisbury's presentation on Tuesday, May the 2nd in the morning, and we just look forward to seeing you there. Is there anything else that you might like to add here at the end as we wrap up?
No, I think that's it. I think I would just tell people to be open to the future because it's already here.
It's already here. Thank you so much, Dr. Salisbury, for being here. And like I said, ISPI appreciates you, and we'll see you in Montreal.
Very good. I'll look for you, Valerie.
Thank you.